Good morning. Wow, it is a little lopsided. I think we just need to do like a whole middle, just pull everything together and just kind of have it in the middle there. Because I'm like, oh, I feel like I need to, do this thing. So, but how's everybody? Did you all have a great Thanksgiving? Yeah, eat a lot of food, sick of turkey. It's like I do that every year for Thanksgiving. There's like turkey and I eat for like 3 or 4 days after, and then I'm like, I don't ever want turkey again. And then Thanksgiving comes around. So I'm glad you all braved the nice weather and came out instead of going and doing something different. And I have, I think, a good teaching today for us. We're going to talk about power. So every time I think of the word power, I always think of like dictators and people that, presidents, Wonder Woman, Captain America, people with power. That's kind of the thought that you get, at least I do, whenever I'm thinking about power. Or I think about someone who has a lot of money or famous or something like that. That's not the kind of power we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about your power, the power that you have within yourself to bring into the world. Because every single one of us has our own path, we have our own purpose, we have our own walk that we're doing. And to do that, we also have to have power. We also have to be confident in that. Generally, we don't start out that way. When we're born, we have everything inside us that we need to be who we are. Because somewhere in the cosmos while we were floating around, before we decided to enter a human body and have the human experience, we decided things that we wanted to learn and grow and experience in this creation, on this world, in this life. So we go. Here's how I picture it going. You're there, hanging out with the angels, having fun or whatever, and your number comes up. 43,789,000. It's time, right? You go to see Source, throne room, God, whatever you're calling him, her, and you discuss the little scroll, what it is you're going to be doing. Yes, I want to do that. No, I don't want to do that. I want to learn this. I don't know. And I would like to be around these other souls here because we made agreements that we're going to help each other grow. And so you get all your little goodbye party, you get your little send-off, and then, bam, you're crying in a cold room, naked. All these hands touching you. You have no idea who they are. And then you hear that voice, the one that's been echoing for 9 months, right? The mom voice. And that's soothing because you recognize it. And then there's other voices that start to come in, right? That you recognize. And some of the voices that you had in spirit land become a little more distant because now you're in a limited body. You're in a limited space. So you're not quite as in tune as you were before. And you start to go through life, and you have many voices come in to begin to tell you who you are. And some things jive, some things you're like, oh yeah, that is definitely me. And other things you're like, really? But why can't I do that? Really? But why should my gender tell me if I can go fight in the military? Wait, why do I have to act a certain way when I'm with a certain group of people? And suddenly, you begin to put all these little masks. You start to gather these little masks. Oh, this one's for church. Oh, this one's for work, so I gotta be this way at work. One of the funniest things ever is when I started opening up to me and realizing who I am and awakening and being like, oh, wow, hey, I really want to do this, or I really don't want to do that, right? And one of the big things for me that always bugged me was the way that Christians acted and got us labeled with this whole judgment thing, right? Because, well, I know God. Okay, well, first of all, I grew up Catholic, and you had to talk to a priest before you could even get to God. You had to confess your sins to the priest. So the voice gets cut off. Other religions where, oh, you can't, no, you better not do that. Heaven forbid you have an alcoholic beverage, because that's going to lead you to who knows what, right? Never mind that it goes well with food or whatever. Hello, there's other reasons to drink alcohol, right? But you begin to have all these different rules, regulations, things put on you that slowly saps your power away. So for me, one of the biggest things was that label. Now, I love Jesus. He's my best bud. We're pretty candid with each other. Yeah. And so I love God. I love angels. All the spiritual things that are out there that are beautiful, that bring me light, joy, and love. And I learn from the more negative ones. Whew, I definitely don't want to be like that, right? So one of the first things I started really examining was that label. Well, what is that? What is a Christian? And I remember, now I always get teased by Aaron because I talk about movies, but there's a lot of learning things in movies, and they're written by real people who have experienced things, and sometimes they use fiction to get a serious point across. Science fiction, any. They really do, And so I get teased that I take movies as law. That's not true. But I do pull some things from movies that I can use in my life. So this particular movie that I was watching was called Fighting Temptations. And it was kind of funny because it was around a time when we were at another church building, and our worship team was going through some growing pains and things, and so we had things going on that meshed with the movie. And I thought, oh, if you haven't seen it, it's a great movie. It's fun, got a lot of music and whatever. But the gist of the story is a guy that comes in pretending to be someone that he's not because he wants money and he wants power. And through the course of the movie, he's realizing, hey, I'm going about this the wrong way of getting power. Well, there's a scene there where one of the characters, they're talking about, what it's like to be a Christian, and you have to be this way, and you can't sing these kind of songs, and you can't do this, and, and the character says, well, my mama said, standing in a garage doesn't make you a Cadillac. So hollering in a church isn't going to make you a Christian either. And I thought, oh, wow, that is so true. I'm going to get rid of that label. Because the last time I had mentioned that I got into church and told someone I was Christian, they suddenly changed how they acted around me. And then they heard me say the D word. Damn it, yes, I said it. And they looked at me like, oh my gosh, you cussed? And I was like, oh honey, you don't even know. I have a jar at home that when I cuss, my kids are like, boop. Now my dad was in the Navy, and he never cussed like a sailor, but his daughter did. It was how I expressed my inner self in anger. And then I read somewhere that people that cuss are really intelligent, so it's okay if you let one slip every now and then. It's necessary. But it's really funny because in other places, some of the cuss words that we use here that are like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you said that, it's not there. Like the word bloody, for instance. In England, if you want to be derogatory or something, you put that word in front of hell or something else, and hoo-wee. But here we say it, we think it's funny. Or, it's just the way that people view things, society, which again, there you go. You have to be so careful what you say anymore. So I thought, I'm just not going to do that anymore. And this was the very first step, probably 10 years ago, where I started realizing I have power that's been suppressed and smashed down, and that I wasn't walking in it because I was so busy masking myself and so busy trying to be who I was supposed to be. a certain way as a wife, a certain way as a mom, a certain way as a praise team member, a certain way going to church, a certain way. I got completely lost in who I was and couldn't figure out, like, why can't I find peace? Why can't I be happy? Why? You know? And then I had an experience with Jesus one day, and I was doing that. I'm not here. I want to be teaching. I have books I want to write. I have things I want to do. And he's like, well, why aren't you just being you? What? Well, I don't know who that is. He said, well, I do. So just start going along with what comes up. What you feel, what is you, and be you. And you know what? You don't have to say yes all the time. It's okay to say no. And it's okay to tell someone, that color doesn't really look too good on you, but in a nice way. And we're going to discuss that. So that you can still be true to you and start stepping and walking in your power without actually hurting somebody, right? And also letting them see, wow, how does she do that? I want to be like that. How does he do that? I want to be like that. You know, I want to have that kind of power. So in my walk as I've been going, there's many different spiritual things that I've always been interested in that, oh no, you better talk about that. Don't tell your friend that you think tarot cards are cool. Don't tell a friend that you watched the psychic lady on TV and was like, oh my gosh, she was right on it. I mean, what's the difference between being a psychic and being a prophetic person? It's the same thing. It's all in how you word it. Are you going to tell me that this person doesn't have the divine in them to where they can hear from God just because they label themselves psychic? Oh, but a person over here that's working in a church and says, I'm prophetic, is the only one that can get that power? Is the only one that can have that power? Wait a minute. I thought like all of us were made in the likeness of divine, so don't we all have divine within us? Right? So it's all in how you label it. And who's to say which intention is the better intention? Because the person over here, they don't know somebody. And if they have an intention to help them because they're seeking help and they get the word and they give it to them in a pure intention, great. If they don't, that's on them. Because one of the things that you got to realize is once you start walking in your power and operating in gifts that you have, you're responsible for the intention that you use it with. And I've been under a couple of churches where I was told certain things prophetically didn't jive with anything that I was. But, oh, you're a woman, so you're going to teach children's church. Now, let me tell you something. I love children. I do. They're cute, they're fun to play with, and send back to mom and dad. After 15 minutes. Even with my own 2 kids, I was like, don't I have some place I can send you guys? For like, I don't know, you want to go visit your aunt? And I thought, are you serious? I can barely be for 15 or 20 minutes in a room with my own kids sometimes, and I'm like, get out. But this guy's telling me, oh, you're going to teach. You're going to run children's church. I'm like, no, I ain't. But I will put in my Sunday because my kids are the age that they, were for that time. I'm like, oh, yeah, I'll volunteer that because, that's what you do. It's a courtesy thing for all the other parents. But there was no way in heck I was going to do it. And I admire teachers and anyone that can for 8 hours a day because I work at a school. And some of the things that these kids, I'm like, oh my gosh. But if you're being authentically you as a teacher, guess what you're doing? You're helping these kids teach, become who they are. You're helping these kids see who they are. I came across a really neat article on Facebook that a mom posted that a teacher had written to her son who was 15, 14, something like that. And they had done the practice SAT, right? Well, he was high function autistic, so there were just some things he didn't get. And testing was very hard for him. So the teachers had to explain, the results to the parents. What this teacher did is she pulled out everything that child was good at that had nothing to do with the test, because he didn't do well on the test. And she said, this test only measures one area. This is what I see in you. Creative, sports, helpful. She was speaking to him all the things that would make him powerful rather than working with the things that wouldn't, or that would cause him to feel down on himself. Because you know what? That's not his purpose here. Whatever purpose he has, it's obviously not going to be educational that way. And I thought, wow, if we could all be like that, if we could all do that to other people and find that in them, rather than dwelling on what we didn't like about them or what they said wrong or getting offended and walking away. Oh my gosh, you said the word Christmas, that offended me. Well, the word holiday offends me. I mean, it's ridiculous, right? So in some of my experiences, I decided I'm going to start trying to walk that. Now, one of those things you have to remember too is when you start stepping into this power, people that are used to you not being in your power, they don't know what to do. Because suddenly you're like this completely different person. Suddenly you're like, who are you? And you're like, well, I'm me finally. I'm me. But they're going, no, you're not. You always used to do this way. You always used to do this way. You always used to say yes. And what do you mean no? Right? I had a recent experience like that. Because I'm still walking the walk. And I have members in my family that, well, they're not happy about it. Because I'm doing things and making decisions for me that are going to allow me to stay on my path and keep me happy. And they're not happy with it. And one of those is some of the things I'm doing spiritually. My oracle cards, my, just meditating. They don't get it. So interestingly, when I was young, my mother, to give you a little backstory, when I was young, some of you that don't know, my mother was very sick, had lupus, died when I was 21. There's 4 siblings, myself, 2 sisters, brother. And my dad did the best he could, but he couldn't cope. So he was an alcoholic. We had a lot of issues. My youngest sister was 12 when my mom died. I did my best to mother her because there was no one else. And so she put me on this weird pedestal of perfection that I had to be. I went to church. I had the best marriage. But in actuality, there were a lot of things going on behind the doors and scenes that weren't so best. They weren't so good. But I had a face, mask, big sister, bam. Well, when I started acting contrary, she decided she was going to blame my new spiritual walk, which really wasn't all that new. I just let it out. And so suddenly, somewhere along the lines, the words witchcraft started coming out. What? You went and had a tarot card reading? Witchcraft? I'm like, really? I don't see it that way. I see it as I had a word for somebody and I can put it into, I couldn't vocalize it. I looked at the picture and I went, oh, well, see right here. Still using my gift with a subjective help rather than objective help rather than some, me putting my own thought because I happen to know the person. Giving my opinion in something God's trying to say or something that is trying to be spoken to the person. So we got in this little argument and my uncle had to mediate. Let's just say it wasn't very nice. And one thing that he said to my sister, I have known her whole life, and the one thing that I've always seen in her is the light. That hasn't changed. So you need to figure out how you're going to deal with it and accept it. And I thought, wow, great. So you're going to get that. But that's okay. Because there's going to be other powerful people around you that are going to be like, yeah, finally, woo woo, you've joined us. Yay. So when I first heard the word namaste, and I didn't know what it meant, and you always see things, people come around, namaste, and I'm like, gosh, that's so like weird, until I really understood what it meant. I bow to the divine in you, or honor the divine in you. Can you imagine what a better world this would be if we all walked around honoring the divine in everybody? And just recognizing that that was there? Every greeting, namaste. It's easier to say it in one word than, you could say, I bow to the divine in you. But man, that's like pretty long. Yeah. It's kind of cool. They shoved it in one little word. So I thought about that, and I thought, okay, so if you're going to be a person recognizing the divine, what are some powerful things that we have as divine? How do you do that as a person? So I'm going to go ahead and list it for you. First of all, a person in power lives authentically. Authentically is representing your true nature and your belief and staying true to yourself. Basically, you're unmasking. You're going to be who you're going to be in a church setting, in an office setting, out at a party. Now, there's little variations. I mean, obviously, in an office setting, there's certain rules and guidelines you have to follow. But that doesn't mean you can't still be you. Everywhere you go, there's just certain etiquette. Etiquette is not the same as living authentically. Just because you're following an etiquette does not mean that you're not being authentic. If you're going to a black tie function, there's an etiquette there. There's a reason you have to wear the tie and dress up and do what you're going to do. You're following that, but you can still be authentically you while you're doing it. Now, obviously, one can't cuss like a sailor from the pulpit. You could, but, Yeah, you know what I mean? Woo! And there's some people that use it as shock value. And if that's you, and it slips out every now and then, great. But honestly, if you're being authentic, people appreciate it. Oops. Apologize. Take off the mask. Don't wear 17 different masks where you are. Just be who you are. And follow the etiquettes, though, because that's just how it is. I mean, you're not going to go to the pool and wear pants and a shirt and swim in that, right? Unless you had skin cancer before and you needed to protect your skin from the sun, but you love to swim. So what are you going to use? You're going to use a wetsuit. You're not going to use jeans and a t-shirt. Let me tell you, those will drag you down. Wear a wetsuit. That's part of the etiquette of the pool. Wetsuit, swimsuit. But you can still be authentically you. Be true to who you are. Don't change a thought. And it's okay to agree to disagree with people. Like if they don't have the same, belief system you have, that's okay. One of the most wise teachers I've ever heard that I had learned from at a conference that I'd gone to said, I'm teaching you this spiritual information out of my path, out of my belief, out of my truth. You don't have to take it in. But if you find things that go along with your path and your truth and who you are, then take it. That's my job as a teacher, is to show you there's more. I mean, can you imagine if people went around just doing that? Hey, well, I don't really agree with that, but, take what you need, I'll take what I need. So be authentically you. Stay true to yourself. Be who you're going to be. Take off the mask. Throw them away. Stomp them. Only wear them at a masquerade ball. Next, express love unconditionally. Love your neighbor as yourself. Jesus. He said that. And for a long time, I never understood that until I heard a few different teachings, some from here, some from other places, that the as is actually as, like you'd love yourself. Which means if you don't love yourself, guess what? You're not going to be able to love others. You're really not. And it is a universal golden rule in all religions. Treat others as you would like to be treated. Some of them are really, from ancient Greece, from wherever. It is a universal truth. Love others as yourself. And unconditionally means exactly what it says. How they are. Because they're being their authentic self. You're being your authentic self. You're going to love them as they are. You're not going to try and change them. You may try and help them. If you see some things that might be taking them down a path that you're like, oh, that's not changing them. That's helping them. Does this really go along with who you are? But it's still on them. They're still responsible for themselves. But you can still love them. You can love someone and not like them. I have those. Usually they're at work. Not where I work now. Well, there's one I don't work with closely, but we correspond through emails. And she's one that I'm like, oh, yeah, we'll never go out for a drink. But I can still love you and recognize the divine in you. And I can still recognize that you have a purpose here. And you're being authentically you, even though it's really mean and nasty, but okay. You're not kind. I get it. Be you. Love unconditionally. Shows compassion for others. That's one I struggled with a lot because I grew up with a sick mom, dealing with a lot of things. And one of the things I always saw my mom be was very, very strong. She very rarely complained. There'd be times she'd be in the hospital just sick as could be, and she was more concerned about us or whatever, right? And then I hear someone complaining just a little bit about, oh, this or that, and I'm thinking, really? Try growing up with this, or try, whatever. And as I started unpeeling some of my own hurts and some of my own masks, I realized that was a mask. Because I didn't want to deal with hurt I had inside from all the pain I went through with her. So I would just, and no compassion. Having empathy, Now, if you're going to be somebody who is authentic to help people, guess what do you have to have? Empathy. And man, I've really grown in that. I have people that I've talked to, that I've, helped or whatever, and my heart goes out to them. When I hear their story, now instead of being like, oh my gosh, blah, 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 whine, whine, I'm like, oh, that's so heartbreaking. And I have this genuine urge and need to help them in any way that I can, because that's me. That's who I am. But you show compassion. It's funny, we were in a class one day, like one of those cultural class anyway, in school, college. And they were talking about Pompeii, right? That big old, the event and how they found bodies, and they found the moms and everything, and people are watching everything. And then they had the body of a dog. And everybody in the classroom was like, oh. And I was like, wait. Whoa. We just saw a picture of a mom hugging her child like they were frozen like that. Nobody said a word. And you see a dog? Because see, we give animals a pass because they don't know any better. We give babies a pass because they don't know any better. Once you start getting older and more human and acting in who you are, or somebody makes you mad, we don't have that compassion. Where does it shift? It should never change. Everybody should be like, crying and sad, right? If you're going to have that kind of compassion for the mother and daughter or the father and daughter or whatever, and like, oh, that's terrible about the animal. It should be like the same, roughly, you know? So compassion gives you power. It doesn't seem like it would be. And these are things that give you power. Giving you power. Power isn't commanding a room and forcing people to follow you. That's not power. That's fake. Power is when you are authentic, express love, show compassion, give honor to others, regard everybody with respect. We have no respect. It is so crazy to me, the disrespect that goes on from this up now, that I'm like, oh my gosh. Like, some of these kids, like when I grew up, you didn't talk back to anybody that was over 50 at all. They were elders, they were older, they were respected. I'm getting close to that. Ooh, yeah. But I'm in a world where people don't do that. Instead of trying to help someone cross the street, they yell at them to get out of the way. That's not power. That's bullying. That's being a bully. That's not helping. That's not being powerful. That's just operating out of some weakness you have somewhere, and you're taking it out on somebody that's weaker than you that you perceive. Give honor. Namaste. I honor you. Takes ownership of actions. That one's kind of rough. You know, it's hard to do that. Because then if you take ownership and you're being responsible for that, that means that you're responsible for whatever consequences or good that happens as well. And nobody likes consequences. I used to crack up on my son when he was little and he'd get in trouble. And I'd ask him why he did what he did. Derek, what were you thinking when you did this? Well, I knew you told me I can't do it. I said, okay. So why did you eat the rest of the cookies? Well, I was walking by and I saw him in there and my brain told me to do it. My brain said they were good and I ate them. And these are the conversations you have with kids, right? You're like, after you walk away from it, you're like, I can't believe I had that conversation. And I was like, Derek, if your brain told you to jump off a cliff, would you do it? Okay, now that wasn't a very wise thing to say as a parent, right? But, I'm learning. And he looks at me and he's like, no. I go, well, why would you eat the cookies then? It's the same thing. Not really, but he didn't know. He was like 7. So my point was, no, you chose to eat the cookie. You had a thought and you listened to the thought when you knew better. So you blame. Well, that's not my fault. Taking ownership and responsibility, though, is like power. Because when you blame someone and you don't do that, you're actually giving them the power over you. You're saying that that person is more powerful than you, that they can make you do a decision that you know you shouldn't have. I don't want to give anybody that kind of power. I want my own power. So you take ownership. And then you respect others' beliefs and opinions. Because guess what? Everybody is not you. They're going to have different life experiences. They're going to have different beliefs. They're going to have different opinions. And we have to learn, if you're going to be a person of power, you're going to respect somebody else's opinion, not try to be right just because, well, I know better. Right? You respect another person's beliefs, opinions, who they are. Because that's more power than not. Now, if you're a brain surgeon and someone's trying to tell you how to operate on a brain who's not, well, that's a whole different story. You can say, no, I'm a brain surgeon. That's not going to work. There are some instances where you're just going to have to say no. But really, respect someone else's opinion. It was so funny. Last week, there was a neat little lady that I met, and I came up on her, and she said, namaste. And I was like, oh, I said it back. And then she was like, oh, wait, I'm sorry. And I was like, what? Because, see, she was in what she perceived church. We talked about Jesus. We had that. Oh, my gosh, church people get offended when you say namaste. I slipped up. I let some of my authentic self and just said it because that's who I am. That's how I walk. And I told her, you be who you are. Say namaste, say shalom, say whatever. If that's how you are, do it. That's what we're about. Right away, that mask, though. Do you see? And I was just like, no. Be who you're going to be. And don't let anybody steal that power. I mean, if we walked around doing that, we'd be more in heaven than hell. Because for me, my definition of hell that I've heard so far that jives with me, hell is when you cannot complete the purpose that you came here to complete. So you're going to be at odds constantly with yourself. And that's hell. Because if you can't be congruent with yourself and be in that power, then you aren't able to walk what you agreed before you got here. So, that is all, my people. Namaste. Thank you so much for listening and being here. And we've got snacks out there. And stick around for Jamie, 10:30 if you can. So thank you. Have a great day. Walk in power.